Hello, this is Ted Argyle from Adrenalin Martial Arts Centre, and welcome to day 19 of 30, where I look at the 30 lessons that I've learnt as a full-time martial artist, a full-time martial arts instructor, and as a business owner for the last 20 years. Today we're looking at a question which has come through via Facebook from one of our members at Adrenalin. I haven't got this person's permission to use their name, so I won't do that. But I really like the question. I'm really excited about giving my thoughts and opinions on it. The question is basically, I've just got some notes here, so if I don't look at the camera for a second, that's what's going on. So the question is what I mean by somebody who is athletically gifted, and does the qualities of athleticism vary between the disciplines of martial arts? And that's a good question. It's something I think a lot about, and something I've read a lot about. I've also talked to lots of professional athletes, and I've also talked to people who are in the health profession. And when I say health profession, people who deal with athletes on a daily basis. And I've talked to them about those kinds of things. So whatever opinion I give here is purely my comments on the subject matter. I'm not university qualified to give my university grade opinion on the subject matter, but the comments are going to be a reflection of what I've seen with working with thousands of different people and talking to health professionals, and also reading lots of books on athletics. So, and athletics is just a generic term to describe any sort of activity which involves movement, I guess you would say, but specifically in the sporting field. And martial arts is, I guess you could classify it as a sport, even though you may never compete in a martial arts or combat sports-based event. It is a sport. So, with that in mind, I'm going to split the question into three different parts, I should say. So the first part is, what do I mean by somebody who's athletically gifted? I think that comes down to sort of two separate parts. The first part meaning that, when I say athletically gifted, I mean that some people have a genetic predisposition to falling apart, meaning that they may have dodgy knees, dodgy shoulders. They may have some cardiovascular issues. They may have movement issues within a specific range of movement or a specific joint. A lot of that is genetic. For example, it's been passed down the gene pool. Their parents had bad knees, bad shoulders, bad backs, whatever it might be. And as a consequence, they do, or you do. So obviously your athletic potential is going to be limited by those kind of factors. It's also going to be limited by your, how would you say it? Your involvement in exercise, meaning that if you've played a wide variety of sports across most of your life, and if not a wide variety of sports, but you've got into one or two sports and you've got into them quite heavily, then you're going to have a massive advantage coming into the martial arts as opposed to someone who hasn't done anything. So that's kind of how I see someone who's athletically gifted. I don't think, we just went to a maternity ward today and we saw we met 5 or 6 babies, and all the babies start the same pretty much. They all look the same. They all have the same sort of structure, the same shape, the same potentials and all the rest of it. But as we age, depending on what we do with ourselves, will dictate how we hold up physically. Again, this is excluding genetic predispositions to injury or lack of mobility and so on and so forth. But for the most part, most of us start with the same sort of potential for athletic development. So I think that, and we're talking at an amateur level, of course. If you're going to be a professional athlete, then there's certain other things which come into play. For example, whether you have predominantly fast twitch muscle fibers, slow twitch muscle fibers, or intermediate twitch fibers. Those sorts of things they do play a part as to your athletic potential within certain events. But that's more or less at a higher level. At a amateur level, which 99% of us are involved in, then I think you have definitely an athletic advantage if from a very young age you've been exposed to either a lot of different sports, or you've been exposed or participated in a couple of different sports and got to a reasonably good level in those sports. That's what I mean by somebody who's athletically gifted. So the word gifted kind of implies that you haven't had to work for it. That's not really true. But certainly if you've been involved in lots of exercise and lots of athletic endeavours, or as I said, one or two but got pretty good at them, then you're going to have a big advantage over somebody who hasn't done anything for 20 years or 30 years or ever. Sometimes I've had people walk into my school literally in their 50s or 60s who have never exercised a day in their life and then decide to start doing something. So obviously someone who's been exercising for most of their life is going to have a physical advantage over someone who hasn't done anything. And the other part of the question is what qualities vary between different martial arts. I think the question is leaning towards, is there sort of athletic requirements, or are there advantages or disadvantages to certain body types and sizes within different modalities of martial arts? That's a really good question too, and I could actually spend a whole another 10 minutes on that. But just to answer that very briefly, I think there's certain martial arts which, what would you say? If you have a certain body type, there's certain martial arts that you'll do better in than others. For example, in the self-defense world, physical fitness and athleticism is not really required. In the martial arts weaponry world, it's not really required. With things like boxing or kickboxing, I think probably just a general overall fitness, in particular leaning more towards a cardiovascular kind of fitness, is going to give you an advantage in that type of sport or that type of martial arts application. So probably the striking arts are more leaning towards cardiovascular, and the grappling arts are going to lean a little bit more in favour of people who are a little bit physically stronger. But of course, if you look at, as I was just saying to my wife about 15 minutes ago when we were talking about this question, you can see people who are at the highest level in any sort of martial art, of all different body types, sizes, shapes, and athletic skills. So I think at the end of the day, you've really just got to work with what you've got. So if you're a small person of small stature, then you'll be able to do things that the big person won't be able to do. Vice versa, that big person will be able to do things that the small person can't do or have trouble doing. So my suggestion would be to know what you're working with. It's a good if you can sort of find a role model who is of your size, your stature, so that you can model what they're doing. But I think more importantly, you need to be personally aware of what your strengths and weaknesses are. Try to maximize those strengths as much as you can, and work a little bit on the weaknesses as well. And basically just work with what you've got and do the best you can with what we've got, because we can't change our body type, body size to an extent. We can, of course, with weight training and supplements, make ourselves a little bit stronger. And we can, with lots of training, improve our flexibility and definitely our cardiovascular fitness. But at the end of the day, we work with what we've got and we do the best with what we've got. And I think that's probably the best advice I can give. So I hope I've answered this question. Again, it's a question that we could spend about 5 hours on, because there's lots of things to take into account. But if I haven't answered this question, the person who sent me the text, please ask me to expand. Or if anyone else has any comments or things they want me to talk about in the next video, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow in day 20. Thanks for watching.